Welcome back to our special coverage, where we continue to peel back the layers of political drama in America, a stage where personal rivalries, media spin, and strategic messaging collide in a way only US politics can deliver. Today we begin with Donald Trump's latest Truth Social post, an attack aimed directly at Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, laced with claims that the United States is firmly in the grasp of the Democrats and teetering on the edge of collapse. Trump's statement, written in the bombastic style his supporters know well, paints a picture of a nation hijacked by radical leftists who are allegedly dismantling the country from within. He doesn't just accuse Schumer of bad leadership, he accuses him of outright enabling this supposed decline, framing it as intentional sabotage rather than mere incompetence. This is not the first time Trump has gone after Schumer, but the timing here is strategic. The post comes as political tensions heat up ahead of the upcoming election cycle, and Trump seems determined to position himself as the last line of defense against what he calls the complete takeover of America by the Democrats. What's notable in this opening act is how Trump carefully blends grievance politics with populist alarm bells. He claims that crime is out of control, the economy is rigged, and America's global standing is the weakest it has ever been. And of course, as always, he positions himself as the solution, the one man who saw it coming, the one man willing to fight, the one man who can make America great again. In true Trump fashion, the post doesn't just focus on Schumer. He casts the net wider, lumping in the Biden administration, fake news media, and deep state operatives into one sweeping enemy block. The effect is deliberate. In his narrative, these forces aren't separate. They're part of a single machine working against the American people. The way Trump frames this isn't random either. It's part of a long-standing rhetorical playbook he's refined over decades. First, identify an enemy. In this case, Schumer. Second, link that enemy to a larger, sinister force. Third, paint the situation as urgent, even existential. And finally, offer himself as the only viable countermeasure. This formula has been one of Trump's most effective political tools, particularly for rallying his base. But it's also a high-risk approach because the more extreme the claim, the more it demands proof. And proof isn't always easy to come by. What's especially interesting is how Schumer's own response, or lack thereof, could play into Trump's hands. If Schumer engages, Trump can claim he struck a nerve. If Schumer stays silent, Trump can frame it as proof that the truth hurts. Either way, Trump gets to keep control of the narrative, at least among his supporters. But this post isn't just an isolated burst of outrage. It's the opening shot in what appears to be a coordinated messaging push. In recent rallies and interviews, Trump has been sharpening this theme. Democrats aren't just wrong, they're dangerous, even treacherous. And while this kind of language energizes his base, it also raises the stakes. By framing political opposition as an existential threat, Trump leaves little room for compromise. And that, in turn, deepens America's political polarization. We're only at the beginning here. As the days unfold, we'll be looking at how this Truth Social post fits into Trump's broader media strategy, and whether this attack on Schumer is just one battle in a much larger war of narratives. Because if Trump's history tells us anything, it's that no post, no speech, and no insult ever exists in a vacuum. It's always part of a larger story, one that's still being written, and one that may be about to take a much darker turn. As we move deeper into this unfolding drama, the spotlight shifts from the words of Donald Trump to the ripple effect they create. His attack on Chuck Schumer is not simply a personal jab. It's a calculated maneuver designed to set the tone for his political offensive in the coming months. Trump's post landed like a thunderclap across conservative media. Right-wing outlets amplified his message, dissecting every word and framing it as a warning that America is in peril. On talk radio, cable news segments, and online forums, the rhetoric intensified. Schumer wasn't just a political opponent in these discussions. He was portrayed as the embodiment of the Democrat machine that Trump claims is tightening its grip on the nation. One interesting aspect here is how Trump's messaging always has a dual audience. On one side, his base, loyal supporters who see him as a truth teller standing against corruption. On the other, the broader public, or people who may not support him but are nonetheless pulled into the debate because his statements dominate headlines. This is a key part of his strategy, create a controversy so big that even critics end up amplifying his message simply by responding to it. But the reaction wasn't limited to conservatives. Liberal commentators and fact-checkers pounced on Trump's claims, highlighting inconsistencies, exaggerations, and outright falsehoods. They argued that his accusations about crime rates, the economy, and foreign policy were either misleading or disconnected from reality. Yet here's the twist. Trump thrives on that pushback. Every fact check becomes, in his telling, another example of the fake news trying to silence him. This feedback loop, an accusation, outrage, rebuttal, counter-accusation, is a familiar pattern in Trump's political playbook. And the more emotionally charged the debate becomes, the more entrenched each side grows. For Trump's followers, Schumer's silence or defensive statements only confirm their belief that he has something to hide. For Trump's critics, the entire spectacle reinforces their perception that he's a master manipulator of public opinion. Meanwhile, the Democrats face a dilemma. If they ignore Trump, they risk allowing his narrative to take root unchecked. If they respond, they risk giving him exactly what he wants, a bigger platform and more attention. It's a political catch-22, and Trump knows it. What's also notable is the timing of this attack. It comes on the heels of several high-profile political setbacks for Trump's opponents and amid rising tensions over legislative battles in Congress. By targeting Schumer now, Trump isn't just taking aim at a single individual, he's undermining the leadership structure of the Senate's Democratic majority, casting doubt on its ability to govern. The next phase of this story may not be about Trump's post at all, but about how the Democratic Party chooses to navigate the trap he's set. Will they engage in a war of words? Will they attempt to shift the conversation to policy issues? Or will they try to sidestep the confrontation altogether? Whatever path they choose, one thing is certain. Trump has once again inserted himself squarely into the center of the national conversation, and from this vantage point, he can dictate the pace, tone, and scope of the debate, leaving his rivals to play catch-up. And yet, beneath the surface, there's an even more pressing question, one that goes beyond partisan bickering and media spectacle. If Trump's latest salvo is just the opening move, what exactly is he building toward? What's the larger play here? And how far is he willing to go to make sure his narrative becomes the dominant one? Those answers may be coming sooner than we think, but for now, the stage is set and the tension is only rising. As the controversy deepens, the narrative begins to shift from a single Truth Social post to the larger machinery that keeps Donald Trump at the center of the political stage. The more this story circulates, the more it becomes clear that this is not simply about Chuck Schumer, it's about Trump's ability to dominate the news cycle on his own terms. Every major political commentator from the left to the right now finds themselves forced to address his remarks. For conservative talk shows, it's an opportunity to highlight what they frame as a Democratic Party in moral and strategic collapse. For progressive outlets, it's a chance to deconstruct Trump's accusations and expose what they call fear-mongering tactics designed to rally his base. Yet in both cases, the end result is the same. Trump remains at the heart of the conversation. This is precisely how he operates. Whether it's outrage or admiration, it fuels the momentum he needs. And the more polarized the reaction, the more entrenched each side becomes, making compromise nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Schumer's office has kept its public response measured, perhaps intentionally avoiding the kind of back and forth that Trump thrives on. But political insiders are already speculating about internal strategy meetings, polling data analyses, and private consultations with party leadership to determine the safest course forward. Every move is being weighed for its potential to either neutralize Trump's attack or accidentally amplify it. Behind the scenes, Republican operatives are capitalizing on the moment. Fundraising emails referencing Trump's post are flooding supporters' inboxes. Right-wing PACs are cutting short, high-impact video ads that juxtapose Schumer's speeches with rising crime statistics and economic concerns, regardless of the accuracy of those numbers. It's a familiar tactic. Take a single political statement and reframe it as emblematic of a much larger crisis. But here's the deeper truth. Trump isn't just trying to damage Schumer's image. He's testing the waters. Every reaction, every headline, every viral clip is data for his team. A way to measure what resonates most with his base and what draws the loudest outrage from his opponents. This isn't random. It's calculated, and it's a rehearsal for the battles ahead in the campaign trail. Yeah, for the Democrats, the dilemma sharpens. If they directly challenge Trump's claims, they risk dragging the public into an endless fact-checking loop that, paradoxically, only gives his words more visibility. If they ignore him, they allow his narrative to stand unopposed, potentially swaying undecided voters. Meanwhile, public opinion remains volatile. Polls show that while Trump's loyalists are further solidifying their support, independents and swing voters are split. Some swayed by the perception of strength and defiance, others turned off by the tone and divisiveness. And this is where the tension builds. Because even as the media debates whether Trump has gone too far or not far enough, there's a growing sense that this is only the opening act. The real confrontation between Trump's relentless messaging machine and the Democratic leadership's ability to counter it hasn't even started in full force. We are, in many ways, standing at the edge of a political storm, and the question is no longer whether Trump will keep escalating. It's how far he's willing to go and what lines he's prepared to cross to ensure that his version of America's reality becomes the dominant one. The atmosphere now feels less like a political dispute and more like an ongoing psychological warfare. Trump's strategy is crystal clear. Stay on the offensive, never give the opponent room to set the narrative, and always keep the public in a constant state of tension. Following his explosive remarks, social media has erupted. Twitter threads, Facebook posts, TikTok clips, all dissecting, mocking, defending, or amplifying his statements have flooded the digital space. Memes portraying Trump as a fearless truth teller are circulating alongside clips of political analysts accusing him of spreading baseless fear. It's a chaotic mix, but chaos has always been Trump's element. On conservative media, commentators lean heavily into the idea that Schumer and the Democrats represent a dangerous grip on America's future. They point to immigration debates, economic turbulence, and cultural clashes as proof that Trump's warnings should be taken seriously. On liberal platforms, journalists and activists counter with fact checks, historical context, and warnings about authoritarian rhetoric. Yet the divide only grows deeper. Inside the Democratic camp, discussions are getting heated. Some advisors argue that ignoring Trump will allow his statements to fizzle out faster. Others insist that silence equals surrender and that every false claim must be rebutted immediately. But both approaches come with risks, and neither side of the internal debate has managed to settle on a decisive plan. Meanwhile, the fundraising race is accelerating. Trump's campaign is selling limited edition merchandise emblazoned with slogans inspired by his Truth Social post, while Democratic groups are launching urgent email blasts calling for donations to defend democracy against extremist attacks. Every word Trump says is being monetized by both camps. The real story, though, is that Trump has managed to transform a single social media post into a multi-day news cycle without spending a cent on advertising. His ability to leverage outrage, loyalty, and media obsession has turned the political arena into his personal stage, where even his critics become unwilling promoters of his message. And just when it seems the dust might begin to settle, whispers start to circulate that Trump is preparing another direct message to his followers. Something bigger, bolder, and aimed not just at Schumer, but at the broader Democratic leadership. Political strategists on both sides are bracing themselves, knowing that the next move could reset the entire conversation yet again. But here's the thing, Trump never telegraphs his full strategy. Every public jab, every fiery post is a test balloon, gauging reactions before the real strike. If the previous salvo was enough to shake the headlines, the next one could be aimed at shaking the foundations of the election narrative itself. And that's where we leave it for now. Not at the end of the story, but at the edge of another turning point, with both sides standing on a political fault line, waiting for the next shockwave. By this stage, the political battlefield feels like it's operating on a constant loop of provocation and counterattack. Trump's latest moves have not only cemented his dominance over the news cycle, they've also forced both allies and enemies to play his game, where speed, spectacle, and emotional punch matter more than measured policy debate. Within Republican circles, the mood is almost celebratory. High-profile allies are amplifying his message on cable news, podcasts, and rallies, framing him as the sole figure capable of rescuing America from what they describe as a Democratic chokehold. Strategists working behind the scenes admit that the raw energy he generates, whether it's love or hate, is precisely what keeps his base mobilized and his opponents distracted. Democrats, however, are scrambling to adapt. A number of senior figures are urging the party to stop reacting emotionally to Trump's provocations, warning that every rebuttal simply extends the shelf life of his message. Others push for a more aggressive posture, arguing that the public needs a clear, constant reminder of why his rhetoric is dangerous. This tug of war over strategy has created visible cracks, and Trump has been quick to exploit them, portraying Democrats as indecisive and fractured. Meanwhile, the media continues to feed the cycle. Panels debate his language, late-night hosts mock his tone, op-eds dissect the implications, all of which ensure that his Truth Social post remains lodged in the public consciousness far longer than most political statements. Even those who despise him find themselves drawn into discussing him, proving once again that Trump's true mastery lies in making himself unavoidable. Out on the streets, the reaction is equally polarized. At pro-Trump rallies, his supporters wave signs quoting his attack on Schumer, chanting slogans about taking America back. Across town, counter-protesters gather, warning of creeping authoritarianism. It's a scene that mirrors the larger state of the country, two parallel realities, both convinced the other is steering America toward disaster. And now a new layer of intrigue has emerged. Sources close to the campaign hint that Trump is preparing a major public event, possibly a rally or televised statement that will escalate his feud with Schumer into a broader, all-out confrontation with the Democratic Party leadership. If that happens, the already charged political climate could surge into something far more volatile. In many ways, this moment feels less like the end of a story and more like the beginning of a new chapter. Trump has lit the match. Whether it turns into a contained fire or a full-scale blaze will depend on what happens in the coming days. For now, all we can do is watch, wait, and brace ourselves. Because in Trump's world, the next headline is never far away, and when it lands, it won't be subtle.